Weekend preview show. I am the host, Stephen Willis, alongside Chad Smith. And we must have did a good job last week because they brought us back. So before we get started, real quick, I do want to tell you about the Vault Society. It is the big push is for Vault Society support, which is a 5-year commitment of support. Membership starts at $5,000 a year, and the benefit chart is on the site. We'll tell you the site address in a minute. All gifts to Ole Miss between now and June 30th receive triple points. Red points are non-deductible and go towards priority seating. Blue points are 90% tax deductible and go towards parking and non-home ticketed games. That'd be postseason, bowl games, neutral site, like us playing Louisville and Atlanta, for instance. You can catch it all at the site at give2athletics.com. Again, that site address is give2athletics.com. Also, Chad Smith comes here courtesy of the Rebel Walk. The Rebel Walk provides a subscriber level experience, and it doesn't cost you any money. All it's going to cost you is a little bit of time, and we all have time to have good quality Ole Miss coverage in our lives. And a show like today will be an example of that Rebel Walk coverage. So Chad Smith is here on the phone, here to talk about LSU. I could make a real rival joke right here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. But tonight they play on ESPNU, the big series this weekend with the Bayou Bengals. How you doing, Chad?
Doing all right. How about yourself, Stephen?
Oh, not too bad at all. I'm excited for this series. It's always fun when Ole Miss plays LSU. There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered going into the second half of the SEC slate, and it should get a little easier for us.
I believe so, and definitely with this weekend, we're looking at a Tiger team that comes in 22-14 and wins. Then we look at their SEC schedule as been very rough on them. It's 4-11, and the knock on LSU in the past is they could win the SEC schedule, but they couldn't win their out of schedule opponents. This year it's quite different, and they get to come to Oxford to see if they can improve on that record.
Now, looking at LSU, what is actually the problem? Is it youth? Is it pitching? Is it hitting? What's going on down there?
So it's a little bit of everything. They've had some problems, not too unlike us when it comes to their Sunday reliever, which we'll cover when we go down and look at Game 3 this morning. But LSU's hitting has been sporadic. They haven't hit in bunches the way they have in the past. Usually once LSU gets a couple of people on base, whether at bat or base on balls, they will just attack you. They will put their ears back and blow the ball into the outfield or, for homers and stack on runs. This year that hasn't happened as much.
Yeah, and I believe they still have that true freshman leading off for them.
Yes, and I don't have his name in my
Yeah, I
list,
completely
but
forgot it too.
you'll have to forgive me because most LSU players I try to forget fairly quickly. So after I see them, I just file 13 them.
Yeah, and LSU coming to town. This is a long, long way from the Skip Bertman era of Gorilla Ball, but we're going to kind of preview them. Not as if they were, but we're going to take them fairly seriously. Um, LSU on Friday night, they're starting pitching. Who are we looking at?
Well, since we're on not to correct you or anything, Stephen, we're starting on Thursday night tonight,
That's right.
and so I'll just say game one. So we're looking at Landon Marceau. He's a right-hander out of Destrehan, and he's 4-3 on the season. He's got a 1.6 ERA, and he's got 67 strikeouts to his tally so far for the season. Uh, he's a fairly big guy, 6'3", 180, and he throws with a 3/4 arm slot. Uh, his mechanics are very similar to the way that Gunner's mechanics are. Gunner has a very repeatable motion. You can see very little bit of movement in his windup and in his approach as he moves to the plate. Landon's very much like that, and he with those repeatable mechanics. Once he gets into a groove and settles into it, that's when he does his most damage.
Wanda Marceau, is he a typical Friday night SEC guy, or is it a little bit of a step back from an LSU Friday night guy?
So he is a full Friday night guy. His fastball will top out in the low to mid 90s, and he works the lower plane of the strike zone. Uh, he is also he's got a curveball that's excellent, shows a very high rate of speed, high rate of spin on that ball, and it has quite a bit of bite as it crosses a plate. He uses that to spread the zone quite a bit, and by expanding the zone, he also makes it difficult on that lower plane fastball when it comes in.
Okay. I was just curious about that because honestly, I tend to not follow LSU baseball, and I was curious with their record with their Friday night pitcher or Thursday night in this case. It was a little bit different. That was the drop off, but apparently it is not. What are we looking at on Saturday night
All
or
right, so
Friday night? Friday night.
you got it. You got it. So Doug Nikhazy will come in, and Doug, as we all know, had a stellar weekend last weekend, coming off of National Player of the Week and SEC Pitcher of the Week. So he'll start against AJ Labas. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I know with LSU players, they tend to pronounce the names a little bit different, but he is 2-0 on the season. He's got a 3.35 ERA, and he actually has a fastball in the low 90s, has some late arm side run to it, and his complement is a sharp slider that's thrown in at about 82 miles an hour. On top of that, he also has the changeup that runs about 80 to 81. Uh, what we're looking out of AJ is a three pitch pitcher with that three pitch repertoire. Uh, it's getting close in there to be able to provide some decent looks, some different looks to mix in the pitches that are thrown to the Rebels this weekend.
Okay. And on Saturday, Grow Bowl Day.
Absolutely. So Drew will be back. Drew McDaniel will start again. We're looking at a 4-0 record so far. He did a yeoman's job in his first start last week against Mississippi State in the most hostile of environments, as we know, as we saw. But uh, with Sunday, the question is, who will LSU throw? LSU has a few different options. They have not made it known as of yet. They are kind of playing it close to the vest, and with Maneri's record, he might use a by committee approach, if you will, and that's what I expect fully. So if we can get that, if Drew McDaniel can come in and give us 4 to 5, maybe even 6 innings of solid performance, all the while reserving some of our bullpen in the first 2 games, then we could be setting up Sunday very well, if not for a win for the series in the rubber match, make it a sweep at that point as well. But I expect all hands to be on deck for LSU. They do not want to go 4-14 to begin their SEC schedule.
Yeah, that would probably be the death knell for Maneri, don't you think?
Most likely so. They've been commenting and uh, debating how do they do it. They don't do so much debating. They pretty much make it very vocal that they want Maneri gone.
Yeah, the fall of LSU baseball has been quite interesting to see. Just into mediocrity, and then now this year just bottoming out a little bit. Now, if we look at the hitting and the Ole Miss lineup, what are you looking for this weekend? What should we keep our eye on?
All right, so there were there was one main thing that I saw last week out of our lineup that we need to improve on dramatically, and that is the beginning, the top of the lineup card. We didn't have as much, and I'm not going to say we didn't have any production out of these guys because they are uh, relied upon very heavily, but we didn't see as much uh, progress or as much production out of Gonzo. We didn't see it out of Chatty, and we didn't see it out of KG. Kevin Graham, we need Kevin Graham to come in there, and while we can't count on him to produce the Tim Elko numbers that Tim Elko was producing before we went out with this injury. We do need to see it out of those three batters. Those three batters set the tone for the whole game, and they just didn't provide the most or their best games. Let's put it that way. At the same time, let me just say this: Mississippi State's bullpen and their pitchers pitched them better than any other part of the lineup. From the middle down. So I want to see better games, a better approach. I also want to see Chatty go up to the go up to the plate and not swing for the fences. He has the ability to take that ball and just dump it over into the gaps, dump it over for singles, get on base, and that's what we need him to do, especially in that two spot that he was hitting on Sunday.
Okay, and a little bit of a question. This is kind of a curiosity thing. I talked to Chris Muller after the Mississippi State game. When you see teams doing that pronounced a shift inside of two strikes, why don't teams bunt?
Well, so first of all, you've got to be a bunting team. You've got to show that you can bunt quite a bit and you can do it successfully in several different situations. Uh, a lot of coaches, and I believe Coach Mike is one of them, likes to hit through the shift. And once he sees that shift on, hit the ball in the opposite field and get on base at that point. You get the base on if you get the hit to the opposite field going the opposite way of the shift, then you could be looking at a double, possibly a triple, depending on who is shifting. I'm not a proponent of the shift. It works occasionally to uh, very to batters that don't really have a another hit, if you will, or another tendency. If they always hit up the middle, or they always hit to the left side, I can see where it could be an advantage, especially if they cannot pull that pitch or push that pitch the other way.
Yeah, it just scared. It was just a weird thing because the ball was being pitched outside,
Hmm.
which tells me opposite field hit to a left-handed batter or to a right-handed batter, but the shift was going straight pull, and I was like, it's almost counterintuitive.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
It's definitely a difficult thing to do, and especially if you're up there, your approach. Also, we're not playing like the majors. These players don't play like 152 games, I believe it is, like the majors does. Major players do. So these guys get in a habit, get in a flow of doing the style of hitting they do best. And so for them to change it up just because of a shift does not actually help in a lot of situations.
Okay, that's good to know. I've been trying to ask that question for about a week now, and this is the best answer I've gotten. Let's look at LSU's batting lineup. Who should we be looking out for over the course of the weekend? Who's going to be dangerous?
Well, there are a number of players that are dangerous on LSU. They've got an outfielder, and my system just went down on the lineup for LSU. But I will say that the top of their lineup is their most brutal. The top three hitters, the top three batters that they'll have. Uh, are the most difficult that they'll have. Once you get down past the cleanup, you can look at the lower half of the lineup is not near as difficult, and you can make a few more mistakes. Gunner and Doug and Drew themselves, along with the guys out of the bullpen, we need to concentrate on locking those first three batters down at any time when they come up in the ball game.
Okay. And matchup wise, is LSU's lineup a good fit or a bad fit for our starting pitching?
Sure. So compared to especially what we've played so far, LSU is more like the Alabama. Uh, they're more the team like Alabama. They don't have as much power. They will hit the long ball occasionally, but they are more of a dink and dunk type team. Dink it into the outfield, dump it into the gaps, and get your man on base. Add more doubles to the lineup. They're certainly not going to hit you if you're pitching well. They're not going to hit you that well going out of the ballpark. So the advantage definitely goes to Ole Miss in this case. We've also had the experience of playing much more difficult foes than LSU has. And when LSU has played a difficult team like South Carolina, they have not fared well.
Yeah, I think they got swept by South Carolina, did they not?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting, and it's like I said, it's always an interesting thing whenever you describe LSU, the creator of Gorilla Ball, as dink and dunk. It's crazy.
Absolutely. If you think back to, and I grew up, I went to high school actually in about an hour and a half from Baton Rouge. And during the 90s, the only thing you heard about were the home runs coming from Alec Box Stadium. And I mean, they were basically destroying balls. I remember several games watching them with friends, and although I was silently pulling against them, watching those balls just crash over their outfield wall at the old Alec box. Uh, this is not the team that's going to be doing that now. There's a lot more parity in college baseball, as we see. I mean, look at the LSU or look at the teams now, and you would think that LSU would still be up in the mix or at least in the top three of the West, and they're nowhere close.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this. Like, somebody asked me, is like, why the last couple of years is Mike Bianco more comfortable, almost a calmer demeanor out there? And my theory is that he had a lineup that could play a little bit of gorilla ball, and that's what he was brought up doing.
Sure. And that's true. And if you would talk to Mike, Mike would probably bust a gasket by if you called the type of ball that we play gorilla ball.
Hmm.
But that's Mike. I'm not going to speak for him personally, but you're right. He was brought up in the gorilla ball era, and he expects us to hit for power. But we need the all around hitting, running. We need to play it smart, play the kind of game that Mike has taught us, That way we can move forward and we can win those games and possibly, hopefully, sweep LSU the way we should, especially when we compare the records.
Yeah, if a sweep were to happen this weekend, and I'm not saying that it would, that would put the plus minus for Ole Miss at +3 and would eliminate that Sunday loss versus Arkansas.
That's correct. That's correct. And we're not going to move. We don't expect to move back into the top 8 this week, even with the sweep. It would be nice. We need the sweep. We need to have a good showing against South Carolina next weekend. And of course, we've got several more difficult matchups, 2 on the road and 1 at home versus Vandy. So we've got a chance to get right back in the thick of things. This past weekend was an emotional hit because it's Mississippi State. Ole Miss hates to lose to Mississippi State. Uh, but as fans and as players, as this team goes forward, we will put this behind us and carry on. Let's meet them in Hoover. Let's meet them in postseason and take care of business.
All right, Chad Smith talking about all the preview that you need to know about Ole Miss versus LSU. First pitch tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPNU. You'll have a preview. You've heard a preview on the podcast earlier today. This released around lunchtime. So I hope you have it on the commute into the game, and I hope you enjoyed it. But for Chad Smith, I'm Stephen Willis saying